And suddenly AI was there. You all remember when AI suddenly happened, and some of you might have been prepared, but let's face it, for most people, it's probably a shock. And we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Noah Kruthaupt.
Hello there, I'm Noah Kruthaupt, author of AI for Boomers and founder of AI Answered. And yeah, the AI bubble kind of came out of nowhere over the past 4 years, and ever since COVID, things have just completely changed.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that AI entering society without a clear on-ramping was a mistake. What, in your opinion, how should an effective on-ramp have looked like, in your opinion?
Yeah, it really came out of nowhere. So like you said, there wasn't really room for an on-ramp. And in the background over the past 20 years or so, and even longer before that, AI and machine learning was always kind of something happening in the background, happening in labs. And it's very similar if you look at even just the computer and the internet, how was something happening in the background with all these, supercomputers that places like Apple and Microsoft might have been using back in even the 80s or 90s before it got really released to the public and became accessible. It was just so expensive to run. They were running tests. They were worried about security. And then out of nowhere, something like ChatGPT just came came to the market. It was, I think, around 2021 and 2020 that it really started getting integrated in everything. And was really something that was simple, but only understood by the younger generation when it came out. So there just was like this little bit of a barrier where, the older generation, they thought it was too technical, and it wasn't.
So, how would you say AI confusion shows up differently across the different generation, especially in the workplace? Because in the workplace, they all have to work together. However, we probably all see that AI is not used equally across generations.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's kind of seen as something like new and scary, I think, by people who don't feel comfortable enough with technology as it is. And some of it is just like identity, even, a manager saying that, oh, I'm not a tech person. Let's just try to stay out of it until we need to use it. And it's really putting a lot of people behind because the number one point to give you a competitive edge in this day and age with a business is data and how you use your data. And that's AI. That's what it is. It's understanding your data and talking with it.
Hmm.
So I think it comes with this big point of you need the identity of it's not a hard thing to understand. It's very simple actually, but you just need it broken down, and often the younger people like to experiment and see what these new things are, and then kind of gets left behind for the older generations that are trying to catch up.
And when we talk about AI being used in the workplace, what in your opinion are the most costly ways they either underuse it, or on the other side, probably what are the most dangerous ways where people probably overtrust AI?
Right. Yeah. So, this is a very good question as of recent too, because Claudebot, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, it's come out and it's basically an AI that can take over your computer and run anything on it. So it gets access to like your bank information, to everything. It can sign in and out of anything. It looks just like a human. And this is a case where I think that you should lean more towards being weary of whether it's secure or not, and really have a professional setup if you're using something like this. But more broadly, to answer your question, McKinsey had a study recently showing that I think 94% of AI use cases didn't generate any revenue
Yeah,
or make any difference whatsoever.
correct. I know that
So
study. Yes.
really focusing and honing in on making things more efficient or more easy, where it relates to things that are already efficient as they are. Like a lot of businesses are coming in and they're automating things that already aren't inefficient, if that makes more sense.
Hmm.
So coming in and focusing on that and overall just leading to better decision making and simplifying things and shortening the time spent on things like analytics and just being able
Mm.
to talk to it directly.
Yeah, excellent point here because let's think about people listening to this right now, or watching this, who are executives. They probably are looking for someone who see AI rather as a practical tool rather than just a buzzword or the next big hype we have to put into the organization. What, in your opinion, if a manager or an executive asks you, what are the highest value, let's say, everyday uses that leaders should normalize across probably many teams?
Yeah, it's a funny question that you asked there because I was just abroad in Europe. I was studying in Luxembourg, and I had the chance to go to this global banking event with one of my teachers. And
Mm-hmm.
at this event was hosted by KPMG, and one of the leaders of RBS asked me a very similar question of, you know, I don't really know 100% what our boardrooms are doing. So I was sitting next to him during this entire event and I was kind of translating things for him. And I'd seen this before a few times where, you know, all these terms that weren't super technical, but where there was no on-ramp, it just had to be completely translated for them. And this happens all the time. But it kind of got to this point where I started to see that what places like EY and KPMG and RBS, what they're doing in their boardrooms and what the IT departments are doing when they come together, the things you can take away are really applied to everyday life. I mean, it's as simple as having all the data in the PDFs thrown into one thing, so you have a knowledge base. So being able to prompt your knowledge base and have a lot of context. And in daily life, that might look like when you have a question about your doctor's appointment, having it connected to, giving it a list of prescriptions in a Google Doc, or just giving it as much context as possible. And then something they like to do in boardrooms also is just have AI sitting there on like the call. Have you seen
Mm-hmm.
where, and they just have it sitting there and listening to everything while it's muted, so it picks up the context of everything. So you start to see more and more things come out like that, where what's going on at the highest level can really be just as simple for someone to use every day. And
Mm.
it's really just the barrier of knowing when and where to use it, knowing the scope of how AI is being used that's kind of holding people back right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything if a manager or an executive that usually these people, especially in American corporations, are risk averse due to the fact that they fear that their job might be on the line when they do it wrong? Is there anything where you say probably where you say that AI explicitly should not be trusted, even if it looks confident? Any cases there?
I would say I'd lean toward anything where there's a lot of creativity that affects the outcome. I think AI is really good for giving you ideas, but something we talked about a lot in our book is the 92-8 rule. And it's this ratio of kind of through the conversations we've had with the different executives, with our mentors, teachers, small business owners, and everyone else that we had interviewed in the process of making this book, we found out that 92% of things that you're doing every day are very monotonous, um, very the AI can do it. It's not something that requires immediate decision making or creativity or human bias at all. You know, looking through spreadsheets, responding to emails or reading through the ones that are useless to you. And the 8% is the creativity and the decision making and everything important that you make a difference in. So I think really leaving that 8% and being able to practice, I think outside of maybe the workplace to be able to understand where that 8% is. I think just being able to own that is huge because even in advertising, for example, a lot of the best ads are something that's considered imperfect by AI if it were to try to generate it. So I think a lot of genius and creativity comes out of imperfectionism.
Hmm. Excellent. So, um, let's just assume one case, because probably any manager will know that case where they said, I heard about an organization where XYZ happened, this went wrong, and someone, of course, needs to be blamed for it. And even if we don't play the blame game here, what would you say? How can an organization rebuild the confidence after something went wrong with AI? Because let's face it, sooner or later, maybe something, maybe even a tiny bit or a small project might go wrong based on AI. How to rebuild the confidence once something went wrong, because immediately the people will pop up and will say, told you so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very true point. It happens all the time. So AI being used across these companies and trying to point fingers at it when something goes wrong is something we see a lot, especially as we get into training. And one thing that has to remain, I think, no matter what you do with AI, I think unless AI is specifically just filing through a database or information, that's one of the only use cases where you should just leave it to itself to do its own thing. There should always be a human involved is the core point of stopping the blame game there because if you have a human in the loop looking over everything, it leaves them in charge of the scenario and they're the one that even if there's a small tiny mistake, there needs to be someone in charge of it still, even if it was overlooked. But it does happen a lot and even with like automation where you see business automating something like phone calls, there should always be a human going through and checking all the boxes as it goes
Hmm.
through the setup, at least for the first couple of weeks maybe, but I think just keeping a really close eye on everything that's happening and making sure you have a human in the loop, just double checking and verifying everything.
Yeah. Excellent. So, coming to the wrap up of this interview, two more questions I have. So, the first one, what, in your opinion, should leaders teach employees about AI opportunities and limitations during the first hour of an AI rollout? So, that means it cannot be long advice, it needs to be spot on and brief. Your chance to say opportunities and limitations when you only have 1 hour to give a message, maybe via video or during a town hall to your organization.
It's a great question. Yeah, so if you had only an hour, I think some of the best things you could prompt them to do are to spend time that first hour with having them use it in front of you because a lot of the times the case is that you can tell them all these use cases and scenarios and the scope of it. And until someone who's never really used AI or hasn't used it confidently in work, they're never going to use it if you just tell them to. So that's why in the book AI for Boomers, we have all the use cases and we have videos that go with it because we want the person to be, learning with us. And it's something where, as we wrote the book, we realize all the opportunities that come with it and just better understanding the world and becoming more curious, becoming a lifelong learner. So the opportunities are really endless. Something we talk about in one of the final chapters is how it's almost like the Library of Alexandria. We kind of bring up this sort of topic and how all of the information on the internet and in the world is kind of one prompt away, and getting people to understand how important that is when doing anything in daily life and work and a hobby. I mean, it's just a complete game changer, and it's not super hard to learn as long as you're doing it consistently and trying every day. Just, I think having fun with it. Just have fun, test it out, give it some practice, and you'll just be so surprised by the different results we get.
Perfect. When now people say, hey, I think I either like to have the book or maybe they want help directly from you. So, first, of course, where can they find the book? How are the books called? And of course, when they want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so our book, AI for Boomers, it's on Amazon. So if you search up AI for Boomers by Noah and Andrew, it'll come up. Um, bright blue and red logo. And also on AIanswer.com, we have our Amazon link and audiobook link coming soon. But there's also all sorts of free resources on there, as well as our contact information. So there's a little contact form if you need to reach us. We do free consultation and would love to meet any business owner or someone who's trying to learn AI and kind of guide them through the first steps. But yeah, contact at aianswer.com is our primary email.
Perfect. I think these are the perfect final words. Noah Kruthaupt, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Niels.